Discover the incredible journey of this grandma. An amazing tale of trauma and transformation. Grace stood alone in the dusty attic of her family home, heart racing as she rummaged through years of memories hidden away. A small, forgotten trunk beckoned her, its worn handle whispering promises of a past she thought she had abandoned. As she creaked it open, revealing a trove of letters and mesmerizing sketches, an unfamiliar jolt surged through her. These relics of her late husband's artistic dreams were not mere remnants. They were sparks igniting a long-buried desire within her to paint. But as the thrill bubbled up, so did a bitter undercurrent of doubt. Could she really dare to chase such a fleeting fantasy at her age? Seated at her kitchen table that evening, brush in hand, Grace felt both exhilarated and terrified. What if her family dismissed her newfound passion as a silly hobby? Their laughter echoing through her mind made her hesitate. Her daughter, in particular, had a way of framing her ambitions as impractical. Grace felt the weight of expectation pressing down, a suffocating blanket from which she desperately wanted to escape. Once she had dreamed of being an artist, but those desires felt selfish amidst the responsibilities of raising her family, now leaving her feeling like a stranger in her own skin. As she daubed vibrant colors onto the canvas, her heart raced with determination, yet it quaked with trepidation. What if the inevitable disappointment from her family crushed this fragile vision she was beginning to mold? There was Mr. Thompson, her former art teacher, the only person who had ever seen the flicker of talent within her. Reclaiming her artistic identity required courage she wasn't sure she possessed. She wrestled with the conflicting thoughts swirling in her mind. Was it selfish to pursue her dreams at the expense of familial harmony? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The thought of her family rolling their eyes brought a wave of anxiety that prickled at her skin. Was it possible to chase this dream without jeopardizing the love she had for them? The next few weeks turned into a tangible whirlwind. Canvases piled up, each stroke expressing parts of her soul left dormant for too long. Yet whispers of discontent threaded through her home. Every time her daughter stopped by, Grace saw the lines of concern deepen, a reflection of her own internal battle. When the idea of a gallery show emerged, it felt like a leap off a cliff. Would they understand she was honoring both her and her husband's dreams? Or would they see her as a stubborn woman clinging to delusions? In a moment of clarity, she realized that her paintbrush was more than just a tool. It was her voice, a declaration of self-worth tied deeply to love. But turmoil was on the horizon. The tension draped like a heavy fog, weighing on her chest until it felt like the very air she breathed could suffocate her spirit. The stakes were high. As she prepared for her gallery opening, the uncertainty gnawed at her with relentless fervor. The night would be pivotal not just for her art, but to challenge everything her family believed about her. Outside the gallery, the vibrant autumn leaves crunching beneath her feet offered little solace, reminders of fleeting beauty, but also of moments lost forever. Would she step back into the shadows or risk everything for a chance to be truly seen? As she took her place before the crowd, her heart thudded with anticipation. Then she looked out and froze. There, in the audience, stood a familiar face from her past, one that could change the very trajectory of her journey. Grace's heart raced, not just from the anxious thrill of the evening but because of the unexpected sight before her. Mr. Thompson leaned against the back wall, his presence flooding her with memories of paint-splattered afternoons and spirited critiques. She hadn't seen him in years, but the essence of his encouragement was etched deeply in her mind. This was more than a mere reunion. It was a powerful reminder of the creative spark that had lain dormant. Hesitation gripped her even tighter. What if he stood there disappointed, regretting the time he spent nurturing her potential? As the room filled with whispers and laughter, mingling with the scent of fresh paint, her insecurities bubbled to the surface like oil on water. The crowd's anticipation felt like a living entity, watching, waiting for her next move. But what if that next move led her to failure? Taking a shaky breath, she focused on the canvases that adorned the walls, works that told stories of loss, resilience, and love. Each piece was a fragment of herself, pulsating with vivid colors that spoke truths she had long buried. She closed her eyes for a moment, summoning her courage. Like an artist wielding a brush, she had to create this moment. Standing before her audience, she was both artist and exhibition. Her determination hardened. The question was no longer about whether her dreams would be validated by others. It was about claiming her voice. To allow her personal narrative to remain in the shadows was no longer an option. She had spent years nurturing everyone else's dreams. Now it was time to nurture her own. Grace stood before the crowd. She could feel their eyes scanning her, assessing not just her artwork but her very essence. And yet she didn't merely want to be assessed. She wanted to be understood. With each passing second, she found a piece of her younger self rising to the surface. The girl who had dared to dream of colors and canvases, vibrant with possibility, was finally breaking free. In that moment of clarity, she decided that Mr. Thompson's presence would be her anchor. Perhaps he would interpret her work through the lens of the past, grounding her as she embraced the unknown. Reaching for her voice amidst the clamor, she began to speak, sharing how each brushstroke echoed her journey. She spoke of the struggles, the silences, and the shadows that had impeded her path, but also of the joys of rediscovering a passion she had thought lost forever. To her amazement, the audience leaned in, engaged not just with the artwork but with the artist herself. Laughter emerged in response to her quips. Vulnerability morphed into connection. And just as she felt momentum building, she noticed a slight shift in her daughter's expression at the back of the gallery. Grace's heart sank as she saw disbelief wash over her child's face, her eyes wide with a mixture of concern and surprise. The realization hit her hard. This was a rift she hadn't anticipated. In her pursuit of creative freedom, she had unintentionally cast shadows on the very relationships that once fueled her passion. Anxiety coursed through her veins. If her family couldn't understand this imperative claim for individuality, would they still accept her? The closing of her speech was met with tentative applause, but Grace's thoughts were spiraling. Just as she turned her gaze back to Mr. Thompson, he stepped forward, his smile warm and reassuring. "You've always had this fire, Grace. It's time for the world to see it," he said, and before she could respond, he pressed a hand gently on her shoulder. But as the gathering began to disperse, a flicker of doubt crept in. Was this the validation she sought, or a sign of disillusionment? She faced not only the need for artistic acceptance but also the deeper need for familial understanding. The night unfolded into a whirlwind of conversations and backslaps, each interaction a double-edged sword. As Grace navigated through the sea of faces, she caught glimpses of her daughter making her way toward the exit, a catch in the air that foreshadowed an impending confrontation. She couldn't let this opportunity slip away. With Mr. Thompson's words echoing in her mind, Grace made a decision. She would confront the rift, not with anger or sadness, but with the ardent desire to connect. After all, the essence of her art was to break barriers and speak truths. The door swung behind her daughter as she hesitated for just a moment. The moment had arrived. Would Grace succumb to her fear? Or would she step into the light, ready to bridge the very chasm that threatened her family? Grace's pulse quickened, each beat echoing the unsteady rhythm of her thoughts. She watched her daughter linger in the doorway, an unspoken divide materializing between them. To Grace, the specter of unfulfilled expectations loomed large, demanding she reconcile her burgeoning identity with motherhood. This was not simply about art. It was about a reconciliation of selves, the artist and the mother, entangled in a complex relationship. Lily, she called, her voice steadying. The name hung in the air, a thread woven through the fabric of uncertainty that surrounded them. Lily paused, a flicker of apprehension crossing her features. Grace could see it, the hesitation, the judgment, the need for connection battling with disbelief. Tension layered the space between them. Grace recalled the countless hours spent tangled in the responsibilities of parenting, the way those duties had gradually evaporated her artistic ambitions. Each sacrifice layered onto the canvas of her life, creating a portrait of a woman diminished by societal expectations. Now, with paint still lingering on her hands, reminders of the night, and the resurgence of possibility, she sought to transform that once familiar portrait into something vivid and alive. "Can we talk?" Grace ventured, moving instinctively toward her daughter. The urge to bridge the gap was raw, almost frantic, As if the moment demanded more than simple dialogue. Grace was determined not to allow misunderstandings or preconceived judgments to imprison them. Lily's brow furrowed, vulnerability emanating from her posture. About what, Mom? About how you just started painting again. Grace's heart clenched. The accusation was not simply about her art. It struck at the core of their relationship. No, it's about more than paint. It's about who I used to be and who I'm finding I can be again, she replied. Her voice a mixture of desperation and hope. What you used to be. You're here now, but I don't even know who this person is. The words fell from Lily, laced with frustration and concern, electrifying the atmosphere that surrounded them. There it was, the truth laid bare. The fissure between them was not just about Grace's rebirth as an artist, but the experience of losing a mother enveloped in the multiple roles life had thrown her way. Grace took a deep breath, embracing the challenge. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of myself. I put my dreams on the shelf, thinking that was what was expected. I thought it was for you, for us. Lily's expression softened a fraction, caught in a moment of confusion between disappointment and awakening. But we've never talked about it. Feels like you're leaving us behind. The weight of the words settled heavily on Grace. This was the confrontation she had feared. Yet, this conversation wasn't just about defending her choices. It was an opportunity for connection, for peeling back the layers of misunderstanding. I need you to understand that this journey is not about leaving anyone behind. It's about coming back to myself, Grace implored, her voice now earnest with vulnerability. I want to show you that reclaiming my dreams doesn't mean I love you any less. It means I want to embrace life fully, from the canvas to our experiences together. She could see recognition slowly breaking through in Lily's guarded demeanor. Perhaps it was the vulnerability woven into Grace's plea, or the raw emotion that unshackled decades of silence. Still, doubt lingered. You can have both, but it just feels so sudden to me, Lily admitted, her voice quieter now, reflecting the weight of the moment. Grace nodded, internally pleased to witness this breakthrough. I promise I'll share this part of myself. I'm not asking you to just accept it. I want us to explore it together. I want to hear your thoughts, your concerns. You mean everything to me. The room's atmosphere shifted as silence enveloped them, pregnant with possibility. There was depth in their exchange, a glimmer of hope that perhaps understanding could bloom amidst uncertainty. Can we start over? Grace asked, her heart opening to the possibility that there was still an avenue for healing, a chance to blend the colors of their experiences anew. But before Lily responded, the lights of the gallery flickered as the crowd began to disperse, reality pressing in once more. The fact that their conversation was a mere bridge into something greater weighed heavily on Grace. Let us talk again tomorrow? Lily finally murmured, the hesitance not fully erased. Yes, Grace replied, a sense of both clarity and uncertainty washing over her. She knew they had laid the first brushstrokes in a long canvas yet to be completed. As her daughter turned to leave, a pulse of excitement and dread surged within Grace. The night had ignited a need to create not just art, but a deeper connection. Yet, she understood that every revelation came with risks, the risk of loss, misunderstanding, and the reality that not every pursuit aligned seamlessly with family. Would she find the balance, or would the specters of her past choices continue to haunt her? The moment of truth loomed just ahead, testing the fragile stitches binding her new identity and familial love, each thread vibrantly alive and tenuous. Grace leaned against the wall, the weight of the conversation still heavy in the air. The gallery was now almost empty, and yet the voices and laughter of the remaining guests swirled around her like distant echoes. She felt a profound dissonance between the vibrant energy she had tapped into during the showcase and the quiet turmoil stirring within her. The brushstrokes she had applied so passionately were not just colors on a canvas but symbolic fragments of her own feelings, struggles and dreams, and they danced in her mind, beckoning her to explore further. With each passing moment, the connection with Lily felt both fragile and promising. Grace was determined not to let fear snuff out the small light they had ignited. Alone, she wandered back to her small studio, an intimate space that had become her sanctuary. The faint scent of linseed oil mingled with the leftover traces of paint on her hands, fueling a resolve she barely recognized. Time to focus, she thought, positioning herself in front of the easel once again. She pulled out a fresh canvas, its blank space beckoning her like an untouched landscape rich with potential. She could feel the anticipation thrumming in her veins. What could emerge from this internal struggle? What stories lay pinned beneath the surface ready to spill forth? She grabbed her palette and began mixing colors, each one representing not only her artistic vision but the layers of her identity she was beginning to reclaim. With the first stroke, she didn't just paint. She poured her resilience, her vulnerabilities, her desire for reconciliation into each line. As the form started to take shape, she reflected on the conversation with Lily. The fear of being misunderstood gnawed at her, but every brushstroke painted a pathway toward clarity. Creativity surged through her fingertips, igniting a new self-awareness with every layer of paint she applied. What if this art opened dialogues that could reshape their future together? With determination, Grace focused on expressing her reconnecting spirit. In her heart, she understood that her role as a mother didn't have to eclipse her identity as an artist. They could coexist harmoniously, each informing and enriching the other. The hours slipped away unnoticed. It wasn't just the act of creation that filled her with strength. It was the realization that through her art, she could speak to her daughter in ways words often failed. An iridescent peacock began to emerge from the canvas, its feathers a vibrant symphony of color symbolizing grace, confidence, and rebirth. This masterpiece, she decided, would be Lily's gift, a visual testament to her journey. As the sun dipped below the horizon, enveloping the room in a warm glow, Grace took a step back. She let the emotional weight of the evening wash over her, mingling with a newfound sense of clarity. It wasn't just about the art itself. It was about how far she had come, and how far she aimed to travel. The next morning weighed heavily on her. The anticipation of their follow-up filled her with both excitement and dread. Grace wanted to arrive at their conversation with authenticity, ready to not only share her art, but also her journey of transformation. Would it resonate with Lily? Would her daughter see beyond the immediate changes and recognize the love entwined in her aspirations? Standing in front of the mirror, she touched her cheeks, feeling oddly grounded. Today, she wouldn't just be a mother or an artist. She would be both, a multifaceted woman, a revelation that could forge a bridge towards understanding with her daughter. And as that thought settled in her mind, another realization struck her. She must face the doubts emerging within herself as well. But this time she would wield those doubts not as chains, but as brushstrokes, colors to blend and express her evolving identity on and off the canvas. With her notebook in hand, Grace made her way to the kitchen, her thoughts racing. Inspiration sparked with fleeting potential. What if she could involve Lily in this artistic journey? The tremor of excitement danced in her stomach as she poured a cup of coffee. What if this journey wasn't just hers to navigate? But as she considered the possibilities, the phone rang, jolting her heart. It was a familiar number, a voice from her past. The call threatened to unravel the careful threads she had just begun to weave with Lily. The weight of her past loomed ominously, challenging her to confront what she had tried to leave behind. As Grace reached for the phone, a question surged within her. Would this call fortify her journey of growth or disrupt the fragile connection she was building with her daughter? The moment of truth hovered before her, demanding she choose the path forward and likely revealing truths she'd long avoided. The voice on the other end was laced with familiarity and a twinge of discomfort. It was Michael, her old mentor, the one who had once championed her art, but had also become a reminder of choices Grace thought she had long since buried. "Grace, I've been meaning to reach out," he began, and she could almost hear the hesitation in his tone. Memories flooded back, opportunities, inspirations, and the weight of unmet expectations. She squared her shoulders, ready to confront whatever followed. "Why now?" she managed to ask, her heart racing. Each beat echoed in her ears, amplifying the tension. The gravity of their past loomed large, but a flicker of determination urged her to listen. "I saw your work at the gallery," he continued, and admiration tinged his words. "You've really evolved. I wanted to discuss potential projects. My new initiative could feature your art, Grace, something monumental." Grace's thoughts raced. The opportunity danced like a bright flame before her, but her heart whispered caution. Wasn't this the same man who had pushed her into the fast lane? The same one who had celebrated her talent while sidelining the spectrum of her emotions? She could feel her resolve waver. Could she even consider accepting help from someone so linked to her past turbulence? "Michael, I appreciate it, but I'm listen," he cut in gently. I know things ended badly, but I wanted to reach out to reconnect. Your voice deserves to be heard on a bigger stage, and I believe this could be your moment. Think of your daughter." His last phrase punctured her defenses. Grace felt her heart soften at the thought of Lily, her daughter, bright and curious, craving authenticity. Perhaps this was a chance to show her that dreams could resurrect, even in the darkest hours. Still, the shadows of past failures clawed at her mind, reminding her of the price often associated with such gains. "I need time to think," she finally replied, a subtle weight lifted and replaced with indecision. As she hung up, the silence of her kitchen wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. Her emotions churned restlessly. The entire call had triggered a storm of reflection. She felt both inspired and scared. In the span of her reflection, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Lily. "Can we paint together today? I want to learn." The simplicity of the message squeezed her heart. How could she share her art, the tumult, the struggles, the breakthroughs, while confronting everything that stood unhealed within her? These thoughts ignited a fierce urgency. Grace glanced back toward her studio, her safe haven now teeming with artistic potential. What if this was the very bridge to bring her and Lily closer? But now she felt the tether of her past under more intense scrutiny, a chance to reclaim her narrative. But how could she confront this vulnerability with her daughter while grappling with her personal wounds? What if involving Lily in her art exposed her daughter to old ghosts or unresolved issues? Her internal pendulum swung precariously between longing for connection and fear of repeating the mistakes she had made. She moved toward her easel. A rush of confidence surged through her. She had rediscovered her own voice in these colors. Perhaps it was time to give that same opportunity to Lily to find their way through this artistic journey together. It called for authenticity, honesty, and perhaps a leap into the unknown. She picked up her brush, the weight of the call lingering in the air, and began to paint yet another layer on the canvas, this one representing the complexity of choices, relationships, and the beauty found in messy realities. Just as she lost herself in the rhythm of creation, a knock at the door startled her. It broke the immersion, prickling her skin with a sudden awareness. Who could it be at this moment? Hadn't she just decided to open the door to her past? She set her brush down, her heart hammering, curiosity and apprehension coiling tightly within her. What awaited her on the other side? The uncertainty loomed large, the echo of the conversation, with Michael and the anticipation of Lily's request intertwining dangerously. She breathed deeply, bracing for whatever revelation awaited her. Grace opened the door, her heart pounding as she faced the unexpected visitor. The late afternoon light streamed in, illuminating a figure from the past, Michael, looking both older and slightly worn. His presence flooded her with memories, each one winding through her like a tight ribbon, intertwining nostalgia and discomfort. "Grace," he said tentatively, "I wasn't sure you'd open." The walls of her home, typically a sanctuary, now felt jarring against her rising anxiety. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to discuss the project in person, to explain my vision more completely," he said, his voice steady. But to Grace it felt like an echo of patterns long abandoned. "Have you thought about my response from earlier?" she challenged, leaning against the door frame, her arms crossed defensively. Michael took a breath, the comedic simpleness of an old mentor's lecture flickering to life in his eyes. "I have, and I respect your need for space. But I also see potential, yours and the unique message you can convey as an artist." His words made her pulse quicken. The idea of working together again felt both exhilarating and suffocating. She had tried to erase the ambition that once consumed her, but it lay dormant, waiting for the slightest spark. "What does the project involve?" Grace asked, the professional in her breaking through. She felt the need to assess the viability of his proposition, to cautious calculations rather than emotional entanglement. "It's about creating something that resonates, something honest about our experiences. I believe the world needs that now, especially given the chaos we see every day," he explained, his eyes lighting up with fervor as she listened. Grace realized that his vision didn't just highlight her art, it asked her to embrace her own truth and potentially expose her vulnerabilities. There, in that moment, a flicker of uncertainty sparked from within her. Could she risk laying bare her soul for public scrutiny? But the tug of what could be of the impact her art might have on Lily compelled her to explore this further. Yet, each thought intertwined with remembrances of nights spent wrestling with emotions that had shaped her journey. the scars that still ached when touched. "Michael," she said slowly, "I'm not the same artist you once knew. Life has changed profoundly, and I am hesitant to dive back into the world we once inhabited. Believe me, I understand. But that's precisely why your voice matters more now. This is about capturing growth, resilience, real life." He stepped closer, his earnestness breaking down her defenses. She felt the walls giving way, the unveiling of long-suppressed aspirations. But the specter of her past flickered like a shadow on the periphery of her thoughts. Could she rise again without losing herself in the process? But just then, the sound of Lily's laughter erupted from the back of the house, reminding Grace of the urgency behind her hesitation. Here was this golden opportunity. Yet the question of whether it was a begging open door to healing or a potential detour into chaos loomed ominously in the distance. "I need to think about it," Grace said, suddenly firm in her decision. "It's not a simple yes or no. It's more complex than that." "Of course," Michael nodded, the understanding in his voice reflecting the evolution they'd both undergone. "Just know I believe in your potential, and whatever you decide, I'll respect it. This project waits for no one, but it's you in the center of it." Grace felt the weight of his words as he turned to leave, their lingering resonance urging both conflict and courage to stir within her. Would she dare to reach for something that had almost slipped through her fingers once before? As the door clicked shut, uncertainty blossomed into defiance. Painting with Lily wouldn't just be a way to reconnect. It could be the first step towards uncovering the deeper narrative she wished to express. A journey of confronting shadows, weaving emotions into a tangible art form, was beginning to call out to her. But even as the notion blossomed, a part of her hesitated, knowing the cost could be more than she was willing to pay. The next morning, a familiar urge beckoned her towards the canvas again, but she couldn't shake the fear of what that revelation might bring. Grace found herself grappling with an inevitable question: was she really ready to dive in, not just for herself but for Lily too? Perhaps today would finally reveal whether she was prepared to break free from her past, or if it would bind her tighter. The call of the easel pulled at her, yet the shadows loomed still, whispering of past burdens yet to be faced. What awaited her upon stepping into freedom? Only the brush and a leap of faith could answer that. The morning sun filtered through the leaves, casting playful patterns on the floor as Grace stood in front of her easel, brush poised but unmoving. She stared at the blank canvas, the emptiness mirroring the tumult within her. The tension coiled tightly in her chest, a knot of fear and apprehension that threatened to consume her. After Michael's visit, she felt a tide of emotions swell inside: excitement, trepidation, hope. Yet, with each pulse of enthusiasm came a stark reminder of the past, a time when her passion had led to both accolades and heartbreak. Could she really open that door again, knowing what lay beyond could shatter her fragile peace? Lily darted across the room, her laughter piercing through Grace's reverie. Every giggle sent ripples of warmth through her, reminding Grace that her journey wasn't just personal. It was intertwined with her daughter's dreams. Turning to Lily, she saw the vibrant little girl painting in her own world, completely unfettered by the weight of what had once held Grace down. "Mom, look!" Lily exclaimed, showing a bright mishmash of colors smeared on the canvas, each stroke an unfiltered expression of joy. The simplicity of her art ignited something deep within Grace, a faint whisper of her own artistic freedom. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. Lily clapped her hands, and as Grace watched her daughter delight in the colorful chaos, she felt a burgeoning desire to join in, to throw caution to the wind and paint unabashedly, regardless of the outcome. With a deep inhale, Grace returned to her canvas, brushing aside her fears. She dipped the bristles into vibrant Matisse blue, letting the color dance across the canvas. Each movement felt liberating but also daunting. Would revealing her emotions through her art open wounds once more? Would vulnerability transform into strength or lead her back to despair? The initial strokes transformed into figures, each one a fragment of her journey: twisted limbs representing struggles grappled with and contorted faces reflecting pain endured. Despite the darkness creeping in, she felt a flicker of light shine through her chaotic strokes, illuminating the resilience that she had built over the years. Halfway through, an unexpected surge of confidence swept her, igniting the belief that reclaiming her artistry was indeed possible. This wasn't solely about her previous aspirations. This was a fresh narrative, a testament to healing and unwavering love. She realized that each brushstroke was not just a depiction of struggle, but a celebration of survival. As her vision began to take shape on the canvas, she glanced at Lily, radiating joy as she added her own splashes of color. In that moment, Grace recognized that her journey could cultivate a shared bond not just between her and her art, but between mother and daughter. This project could be more than a reflection of her. It could also capture the beauty of their relationship. Yet, the figure of Michael loomed again in her thoughts. His belief in her potential lingered like a siren song. Was she indeed ready not only to embrace her own narrative, but also to intertwine it with his vision? Sweat dotted her brow as she wrestled with the decision. Grace had always been protective, but for the first time, she began to see the value of sharing her insecurities, both with Michael and the audience. Slowly she began to understand. The more she revealed, the more she connected not only to herself but to others who felt fractured. Just when clarity was setting in, the doorbell rang. The piercing chime echoed through her thoughts like a jolt of electricity. A rush of uncertainty flared up. What now? Grace wiped her hands on her apron, glancing at Lily, who looked up wide-eyed. Was this another opportunity, or an unwelcome disruption? She hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of her brush still lingering between her fingers. But with each pass of color, she'd come closer to making a choice that could define not just her art, but her relationship with Michael, her journey of healing, and her future with Lily. Would embracing her past lead to triumph or catastrophe? Pressing her lips together, Grace pushed the brush into the wet paint one last time, leaving behind a bold streak of crimson as she moved toward the door, ready to confront whatever awaited her. Could this knock be the turning point she desperately needed? Or would it plunge her deeper into uncertainty? Only stepping outside would reveal the truth. Tension swirled in the air as Grace approached the door, her heart racing. Each step felt like a navigation through uncharted territory, a reminder that she had frequently avoided the intersections between her past and present. The soft sound of her daughter's laughter faded into the background, drowned by her racing thoughts. Who was it? What awaited her beyond the threshold? The moment she turned the knob, an unexpected wave of vulnerability crashed over her. The door creaked open to reveal a familiar face framed by the bright afternoon light. "Grace," Michael said, his expression wavering between surprise and determination. Michael. Her mind whirled. In her heart of hearts, she wondered why he had returned. Their previous conversation weighed heavily in the air, the unspoken words still lingering. This time, however, the painting session within her fed a newfound sense of purpose. "Can we talk?" Michael requested, stepping slightly outside, wary of encroaching. The scent of the blooming garden wafted through the air, a stark contrast to the tension she felt. Grace hesitated, caught between a desire for connection and the fear of the vulnerability it demanded. "Now, I'm in the middle of something," she replied, glancing over her shoulder at Lily, who was blissfully absorbed in her painting. "You're in the middle of your art. I get that, but I need to talk to you, Grace. This is important." His tone was earnest, and for the first time, Grace sensed an urgency that struck a chord deep within her. Taking a swift breath, she made a choice. Stepping aside, she invited him in, her heart pounding with each passing second. The living room was cluttered, but in that chaos, memories of laughter, joy, and neglect intermingled. As he entered, she felt the familiar blend of comfort and apprehension flood through her. "You caught me in a fragile moment," Grace admitted, brushing the crimson paint off her fingers as she motioned for him to sit. "I'm not sure I'm ready to absorb more emotions right now. Maybe that's the part we should explore," he suggested, settling onto the edge of the couch, animated yet contemplative. "Your art, its depth and raw. Isn't that what we need to confront? All these unexpressed feelings?" She found herself captivated by his perspective. What if by confronting her fears through conversation instead of just her art, she uncovered truths buried beneath the surface? Why did you really come here? Yet, even as she posed the question, she sensed a strong desire to unravel the threads of their complex relationship. This was not just about him. It was about her journey, her growth. "I want to see you succeed," he said, sincerity heavy in the air. "You have so much talent. But more than that, I think you owe it to yourself to show the world everything you can create. The fear of failure can't be your tether anymore." Grace grappled with his words. Each syllable resonated with her own reflections about vulnerability, a concept she had wrestled with since stepping back into her art. But what if my truth isn't well received? She retorted, feeling the sting of possibility deep within. Then it's still your truth, Grace. And if it scares you, then that's a sign you're onto something significant. His conviction turned her fears into bold questions. Could her paintings evoke emotions that connected with others? In the culture of shared understanding, what she perceives as the jagged edges of her story might in fact be threads that tethered viewers to their own experiences. Step outside of what feels safe, feel it. Embrace the chaos, he urged gently. I think you're ready. Grace's breath hitched. The doubt she had carried for years began to dissolve like the paint she had wielded in her hands. She felt a palpable shift within, a dawning understanding of her strength reflected back at her through Michael's unwavering belief. But even as clarity began to form, a thick undercurrent of attachment hung, a whisper that reminded her of past upheavals. Trust remained elusive, and the ramifications of his presence threatened her delicate equilibrium. Whatever happens next, I can't promise it will be easy, she cautioned. Engaging with my past, being open to my truth, it's all scary. It's supposed to be, he replied, a gentle smile crossing his face. The authority in his voice momentarily sharpened her focus. It felt as if she stood on the precipice of a new chapter, a beginning combined with an old narrative. But would she dare leap into the unknown? As the weight of uncertainty enveloped her, she caught a glimpse of Lily's splashes of color brightening the room with life. She understood then that it wasn't just about her anymore. Let us paint together, Grace whispered, conviction threading her words. Michael's eyes lit up, but before he could respond, a crash echoed from the other room, a sound of shattered glass followed by the soft thud of Lily's voice calling for her. A wave of adrenaline surged. Everything paled in comparison to the sudden urgency rising within her. What had just shattered, and what would it reveal about the journey ahead? The sound of Lily's voice cut through the tension like a knife, echoing through Grace's mind. Instinctively, she surged from her seat, heart pounding not just from urgency but from a palpable sense of responsibility. This chaotic moment, though jolting, was a stark reminder of the stakes involved not just in her art, but in her life as a mother. Lily, Grace called out, her voice firm yet laced with concern as she rushed toward the source of the commotion. As she crossed the threshold into the room where the sound had emanated, an unsettling sight greeted her. Broken shards of a once vibrant glass vase lay scattered across the floor, their remnants reflecting the sunlight in sharp shards of color. Lily stood nearby, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty, paintbrush still clutched in her hand. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, Lily exclaimed, her voice trembling like the tiny, delicate petals they had tried to replicate in their painting earlier. Kneeling to meet her daughter at eye level, Grace felt a swell of conflicting emotions reverberating through her. She wanted to convey reassurance, but the jagged pieces surrounding them reminded her of the fragility of both glass and life, a delicate balance that could shatter in an instant. Sweetheart, it's okay, she said, forcing a calmness into her voice. Accidents happen. Let us clean this up together. The soft authority in her tone surprised her, as if each word helped solidify her resolve. Wasn't this, after all, the same reassurance she craved for herself in the daring endeavor she now faced with her art? As they began to gather the remnants of the broken vase, the physical act brought her closer to the enveloping sense of chaos she had so carefully been skirting around. Shards of glass represented more than just an accident. They symbolized moments in her life that had splintered, her relationships that fractured, dreams deferred, and fears left unexamined. With each piece they picked up, an internal dialogue stirred. Let us not just focus on the mess, Lily, Grace offered, mindful of the lesson hidden in this moment. What do you think we can learn from this? Lily paused, her brow furrowed in thought. Maybe it reminds us to be more careful? Grace nodded, but an inkling of a deeper truth emerged within her. Yes, and also that sometimes things don't turn out how we planned, but we can create something new from the pieces. Lily's gaze began to shift, the earlier panic washing away in favor of curiosity. Reinforced by her daughter's emerging insight, Grace felt a surge of determination bolstered by their shared experience. What if she viewed her art this way? Every brush stroke could symbolize confronting pain or vulnerability, and like the shattered vase, perhaps it could be reassembled into something even more beautiful. With the room now tidy, They returned to the living room, the remnants of regret fading in the light of creativity. Michael was still waiting, an expression of understanding dancing behind his eyes, as if he too sensed the growth in the air. "This," Grace said, gesturing towards the chaotic yet invigorating atmosphere they had just escaped, "is what I want to channel into my work." At that moment, she acknowledged the connection between her personal experiences and creative expression, a bridge once frail now strung taut by clarity. Michael leaned forward, excitement kindling at her words. "Then let us harness that energy. What can you create? What will you paint that tells this story?" Grace envisioned the chaos of her past not as fragmented losses but as bold colors, rich textures, and frenetic brushwork. Suddenly, she felt an urgent need for action. The urge to blend her truth onto canvas became imperative, transforming fear into fervor. "Can we start now?" she asked, surrendering any remaining hesitation to the thrill of possibility. "Absolutely," he replied, encouraging her to navigate this uncharted realm together. As they set up the canvas and colors, a flurry of newfound energy swirled around them. Yet, in the back of Grace's mind, doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest. What if this awakening led nowhere? Was she truly prepared for the emotional upheaval her art could evoke? Pushing those thoughts aside, she raised her brush to the canvas, ready to take the first step into her undiscovered self. Each stroke felt like a promise, a commitment to embrace the layers of vulnerability she had fought so hard to shield from the world. But just as she began to pour her essence onto the canvas freely, the doorbell rang, cutting through the creative silence, bringing with it a sense of foreboding. What awaited her now, at the threshold of her new beginning? What if this visitor held answers or complications that could alter her path once again? Grace stepped back, breathing in the vibrant chaos of the moment. The doorbell echoed in her mind like an unfinished melody, but she felt a newfound clarity tide her resolve. This was her moment, not just as an artist, but as a mother, an individual, a woman who had finally found the courage to voice her truth through her art. With renewed determination, she turned to Michael and Lily, who stood by her side, eager for whatever came next. "Let us make this a celebration of everything we've discovered," she declared, ready to confront the barriers that had previously held her back. Together, they would create something that spoke to both personal healing and maternal ties. Standing under the warm glow of the upcoming afternoon light, she acknowledged that her journey would forever change. All that she had bottled up could now explode onto the canvas. That moment, an idea sparked in Grace's mind. "Let us transform the chaos into a story," she told Michael excitedly. "Let us paint a mural that represents the swirl of emotions that life brings: love, loss, recovery." As she spoke, images flooded her imagination. Her once buried dreams and aspirations merged into a vision dense with color and texture, one that echoed the very fabric of their relationships. Turning to her daughter, she continued, "Lily, I want you to paint with us too. You bring such vibrant energy to life. Your colors can convey everything you've experienced." Lily's eyes lit up, breathing new life into her artwork as she nodded enthusiastically. Grace watched her daughter, seeing the young girl's artistic spirit flourish amidst their collaboration. This project wasn't solely about painting. It was about their connection, the intertwining of their experiences into one coherent narrative. As they set up the canvas, layering hues of blue and green, Grace felt every brush hit the canvas as if it blended not just paint but also their journey. With every stroke, their stories unveiled her fears, her triumphs, and the love that had been woven through years of struggle and growth. It was no longer just her fear but a shared resonance. The doorbell rang again, pulling her attention momentarily from the art. Hesitant yet resolute, Grace walked to open it, standing tall as she approached the familiar frame. There was her daughter's friend, an unexpected visitor who witnessed the reflection of youth and opportunity. As Grace welcomed her inside, she could feel the atmosphere shift. It became charged with infectious creativity and vulnerability. This was the glorious unpredictability of life that she had once shied away from. Drawing back into the space where she and Michael had begun to share their truth, Grace invited Lily's friend to join. "We're exploring emotions through art," she beamed, suddenly feeling the collective strength that came from bonding over creativity. The enthusiasm spread like wildfire around them. Together they created art that spoke aloud, each color and each stroke resonating with the stories that unfolded through laughter and moments filled with exuberance. As time drifted on, Grace found herself taking a step back from the easel, surrounded by the array of colors they had all contributed. She marveled at the tapestry of emotions laid bare on that canvas, her triumphs emphasized under strokes of gold and bronze, Lily's joyous spirit captured in every vibrant swirl, and the hopeful energy from her daughter's friend marking the canvas in sunlit bursts. This was art born not merely from her struggles but shaped by shared experiences, a depiction of their unity amidst chaos, and the celebration of individuality. Grace felt a surge of affirmation settle inside her. She realized she was not just emerging as an artist but also embracing her multifaceted identity, a mother, a creator, a woman gracefully navigating her past. Stepping away from the canvas, she absorbed the beautiful chaotic scene unfolding before her, witnessing the essence of healing sinking into every finish. Glancing at Michael, she saw an expression of approval on his face. He had watched her take this brave leap, transforming doubt into co-created beauty. This was art indeed. It was beautifully flawed and rich with the complexity that life often demanded. As the vibrant mural stood completed, Grace felt a sense of accomplishment settle deep within her. She had conquered her fears and insecurities by transforming them into something tangible and meaningful, not just for herself, but for those she loved as well. In this artwork, she found both her voice and connection, an authentic reflection of growth that encapsulated their intertwined journeys. Contentment washed over her. For the first time, she felt her role as an artist perfectly aligned with her identity as a mother. The walls separating Grace from guilt had crumbled. She would carry this lesson forward. Never again would she abandon her passions, nor would she sacrifice her individuality for the sake of family. Instead, she would embrace the blend of art and love that resonated with every heartbeat shared in this room. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow upon their masterpiece, Grace knew this marked not merely the conclusion of a chapter, but the beginning of many more colorful stories waiting to emerge. She had not only rediscovered her passion but had established a space where she, as an artist, could wholeheartedly shine. And with heartfelt conviction, she leaned into shared moments along the canvas, ready to create new narratives, not just for herself, but for her daughter, for their relationship. In this endeavor she had truly arrived home. As they stood together witnessing the fruits of their labor, there were no more doubts, only the right to exist fully in each other's lives. A new alliance forged through creativity, hope and love. The journey had led her here, and there, she would remain. Now, if you've been moved by Grace's journey and want to stay connected with more incredible stories of transformation and resilience, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that touch the heart and inspire new paths. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these transformative tales. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Grace's journey. What did her story mean to you? And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.